Dinner at my parents' house in Willow Creek was supposed to feel familiar, warm, predictable, nostalgic in the way small towns tend to be. Instead, the moment I walked through the doorway, the air felt preloaded, like a room holding its breath. Plates were already set, chairs pulled out, candles lit too early in the evening, like someone staging a photograph rather than hosting a family meal. I told myself I was imagining it, that after months of working 12-hour days at the tech firm back in Seattle, maybe my nerves were simply stretched thin. I set my bag down, smoothed my coat, and stepped into the dining room. My mother barely glanced at me. My father muttered, "Evening." My brother, Luke, offered a stiff half-smile, one of those smiles that apologizes without admitting what it's apologizing for. I tried to settle into the evening, making small talk, asking about town events, the hardware store, Luke's side business refurbishing old motorcycles. Every answer was clipped and strangely rehearsed. Even the way they chewed felt synchronized. At one point, Mom commented on my blazer, very corporate, with that tight voice she used when she wanted something to sound like praise but coded it in jealousy instead. Dad grunted something about how people in big cities lost touch with real values. Luke mentioned that my visits were rare enough to be considered sightings, like he'd been saving that line. I swallowed each sting, reminding myself that coming home was supposed to repair things, not inflame them. But beneath the table, my leg wouldn't stop bouncing. The unease was too sharp to ignore. The meal itself was almost silent, save for forks tapping ceramic plates and the occasional awkward cough. My mother passed the green beans without lifting her eyes. My father offered me the breadbasket like he was handing evidence to a judge. Then, halfway through dinner, Dad set down his fork. Not gently, not accidentally. He placed it with intention, the metal clinking against the plate like a gavel. He looked directly at me, jaw stiff, expression unreadable. "We've talked things over," he began, voice low and tight. "And we want you to stop sending money. We don't need it." I nodded slowly, thrown off balance but trying to understand. Then Mom added, "Or you. We don't need you either." The words didn't echo. They detonated. Luke leaned back, arms crossed, nodding as if relieved the statement had finally been spoken. "Yeah," he muttered. "It's time you stopped acting like we're some project you're funding." For a moment, I felt the world tilt, like gravity had shifted an inch to the left. My fingers went numb. My heart didn't race, it froze. I scanned their faces, hoping someone would crack a smile, laugh, shake their head, say this was some strange family joke. But no one moved. No one spoke. No one looked regretful. They looked finished. And something inside me, something I had used to tie myself back to this place, unraveled quietly. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I simply stood up. The chair legs scraped against the floor. No one tried to stop me. No one asked where I was going. No one even looked up. When I stepped outside into the cold evening air, it wasn't the chill that shook me. It was the realization that they had already decided this moment long before I showed up. And they had rehearsed it without me. But what none of them realized was this. Their decision to cut me out didn't end anything. It triggered something in me they never saw coming, and everything that happened next began the moment I walked away from that table. Long before that dinner blew everything apart, I had convinced myself that physical distance was the only real tension between my family and me. Working long hours as a software engineer in San Francisco, juggling deadlines, taking on extra tasks, I told myself I was simply too far away and too busy to be the daughter and sister they needed. It was easier to believe that than to face the truth buried under years of quiet resentment and unspoken expectations. But the truth had always been there, simmering beneath the surface. Growing up in that small Tennessee town felt like trying to breathe through a thick blanket. Our house always carried the scent of engine grease from my father's work shirts and the warmth of freshly laundered quilts my mother spent nights stitching together. Money was so tight it felt like even the walls were holding their breath, trying not to cost us anything extra. Some of my clearest memories aren't birthdays or holidays. They're the nights when the recession slammed into us like a storm we couldn't outrun. My mother whispering about overdue utility notices. My father pacing the narrow hallway, frustration filling every step. Me lying in bed pretending to sleep as their anxiety seeped through the thin drywall. I used to think that if I just worked harder, studied harder, Maybe I could pull us out of that constant financial chokehold. That idea became my silent mission. My younger sister, Madison, depended on me even more than she admitted. Whenever the arguments grew too loud, she'd tiptoe into my room, curl up beside me, and whisper fears she didn't dare share with our parents. "We're not going to lose the house, right?" I was 12. She was 10. I didn't know the answer, but I told her no every time. Some promises sink deeper than we intend. School became my escape hatch. I devoured textbooks, sat at the kitchen table with a flashlight to avoid waking Madison, and threw myself into anything that promised a way out. My teachers noticed the way I could dissect a problem and stitch it back together. They pushed me toward computers, insisting I had a mind built for logic and chaos management. By high school, coding had become my oxygen. Winning competitions gave me glimpses of a future that didn't include unpaid bills or dinner table silence. When I earned a scholarship that pulled me out of Franklin and into San Francisco, it felt like stepping off a cliff, but in the best way possible. Leaving home didn't feel like abandoning them. It felt like becoming strong enough to help them. And I did help, more than they ever acknowledged. Every paycheck from my first job went partially back to Franklin. Quiet transfers, repair funds, emergency payments. I paid for cracked pipes, a collapsing roof, medical bills, and the countless little repairs my parents insisted they could handle, but never actually could. Helping Madison came naturally, too. She had always dreamed of owning a boutique, designing clothes, running something small and pretty and entirely hers. I wanted that dream to exist for her. A loan here, a deposit there. Eventually, I even bought her an SUV to help her grow her business, imagining her driving to vendor events with pride. But over the years, something in her shifted. Gratitude morphed into a strange form of disdain, as though accepting help somehow diminished her. She'd snap comments disguised as jokes. Mom would sigh when I offered support. Dad would clam up whenever money was mentioned. I told myself the resentment would soften over time. But the truth? That bitterness was already waiting at the dinner table the night they cut me out. And when I finally realized how long they'd been rehearsing their rejection, I also realized something else. My silence that night was about to become the turning point none of them ever saw coming. The night of that dinner is carved into my memory with the kind of precision trauma has. Nothing dramatic happened at first, but sometimes the quietest moments are the ones that crack you open. I had walked into my parents' dining room, hoping for something simple. A reset, a chance to feel like family still meant something. But from the second I sat down, I felt the shift. It wasn't loud or obvious, just a weighted silence, like the house itself was bracing for impact. Mom barely glanced at me as she ladled gravy. Dad gave a stiff, obligatory nod. Madison offered a thin smile that evaporated before it reached her eyes. I tried to ignore the tension. I asked how things had been, how the shop was doing, whether Dad's back pain had improved, or if Mom's quilting orders were picking up. Every response felt clipped, as if they were racing to get through the conversation without actually engaging in it. Then came the comments. Madison mentioned my haircut, said it looked so corporate, the kind of backhanded compliment she perfected over the years. Dad tossed out a remark about me being busy living a big city life, like my absence had been intentional abandonment rather than survival. Mom sighed sharply when I offered to help fix the loose porch railing. Individually, those moments wouldn't have rattled me. But put together, they felt coordinated, as if they'd spent the past week comparing notes on how to remind me I no longer fit. Still, I pushed the discomfort down. I focused on the meal, on the hope that things would warm up once we eased into conversation. For a few minutes, everyone pretended well enough. Madison talked about her boutique, her voice lilting with pride, rewriting the past with casual ease. She claimed the town had rallied around her to make the shop happen, as though my deposits and quiet financial safety nets had been community bake sales instead of my personal savings. I almost corrected her. Almost. But I swallowed the truth. I wasn't there to fight. Then everything shifted in a single moment, the kind of moment that rearranges your understanding of reality. Dad put down his fork again. This time, it wasn't the sound that startled me. It was the expression. Hard. Resigned. Like he was about to deliver a verdict. "Kimberly," he said, voice low and steady, "we've decided we don't need your money anymore." Before I could respond, Mom added, "Or you." The words didn't just hurt, they hollowed me out. My first reaction was disbelief. I stared at them, waiting for someone to soften the blow, add context, say it came out wrong. Then Madison leaned back in her chair, arms folded, and said, "They're right. None of us need you. Or your money." She said it with the ease of a woman reciting a script she'd practiced in the mirror. I looked from face to face, searching for a flicker of hesitation. A trembling lip, a regretful sigh, anything. But all I saw were people who had already decided, long before I arrived, that I was no longer part of the picture. They didn't want my help, my presence, or the quiet labor of love I'd given freely for years. I didn't remember standing. One moment I was staring at Madison, and the next I was outside, the cold night air slapping my cheeks as if urging me to wake up. I walked to my car in silence. I didn't look back. No one followed. And in that stillness, away from their voices, their judgment, their rehearsed cruelty, I realized something new. Their words hadn't shattered me. They had freed me. But what I didn't know then was that the deepest cut was still coming, and it would arrive through a glowing screen, delivered by someone I never expected to call that night. Back at the hotel, the quiet felt unnatural, too clean, too controlled, like someone had turned down the world's volume just to force me to sit with what happened. I sat on the edge of the bed, replaying their voices over and over. The way my father didn't blink. The way my mother delivered her sentence like she was commenting on the weather. The way Madison didn't hesitate to echo them, as if she'd been waiting for the chance. I pressed my palms into my eyes until spots of light bloomed behind my eyelids. But no tears came. The shock had dried them already. Then my phone buzzed. The caller ID lit up. Elena Cook. A friend from high school. Someone who didn't call without a reason. I answered quietly. "Elena." Her voice came through tight, cautious. "Kim, did something happen tonight?" My stomach tightened. "Why?" There was a pause, long enough to warn me. "Check Madison's Instagram," she finally said. "Like right now." My heart dropped, but I opened the app. I typed my sister's name into the search bar, and her profile loaded instantly. Bright colors, curated outfits, perfectly staged boutique photos. But it was the captions that hit me like a punch to the gut. Built this entire shop from nothing. Self-made and unstoppable. So proud to say every success came from my own hard work. Never needed handouts, just determination. My breath caught. Each word denied, every transfer I'd sent. Every bill I'd covered. Every late-night phone call that ended with me wiring money she promised she'd pay back eventually. That would have been enough on its own. But Elena's voice came again, softer this time. "Kim, look at the comments." I scrolled. People praising her. Telling her she was an inspiration. Applauding her for rising without help. Calling her a true self-made woman. Then I saw it. A comment from her friend Erica. "You've always been independent. Not like some people who need to buy validation." Madison responded with 3 laughing emojis. I didn't move. I didn't blink. It felt like every part of me turned to glass. "This isn't even the worst of it," Elena added. "Half the town thinks you never lifted a finger for her." They're repeating what she told them. Something inside me shifted. Not shattered, clicked. They hadn't just rejected me. They had rewritten me. Erased me from the story I helped build. I opened my laptop with hands that no longer trembled from hurt, they trembled from clarity. The first thing I searched was the SUV paperwork. The one Madison paraded around town. The one she claimed she saved up for. The title still had my name on it. Every payment record, every document confirmed what she worked so hard to bury. Next came the boutique loan. Years of transfers, payments, and bank statements, all quietly linked back to me. Cold facts. Hard evidence. A timeline she covered with pretty filters and lies. And for the first time that night, I inhaled deeply without feeling like something weighed on my lungs. Elena's voice broke the silence. "Kim, what are you going to do?" I stared at the screen. At everything I had given. At every sacrifice they refused to acknowledge. And the answer rose in me with a calm I barely recognized. I'm going to give them exactly what they asked for. But choosing to walk away was one thing. Showing them what life looked like without my support was something entirely different. And the first domino would fall before the sun even rose. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because my mind slipped into a mode I hadn't visited in years. The same part of me that used to stay up solving coding puzzles now analyzed my family's choices with surgical calm. Every memory, every financial receipt, every conversation where they'd let me carry the weight without acknowledging it. By the time dawn filtered through the hotel curtains, I felt strangely clear. Not vengeful, not frantic, just steady, like a person who had finally stopped trying to swim against a current. I opened my laptop. Step 1, the SUV. The shiny black SUV Madison flaunted in every post. The one she posed with like it was her crowning achievement was legally mine. Gifted, yes, but titled under my name because I'd been the one responsible for the payments and insurance. I had bought it when she told me she needed it to make deliveries and attend markets for her boutique. I remember the gratitude in her eyes when I handed her the keys. A gratitude that, over time, had evaporated into entitlement. I found the dealership's number and called. "Hi," I said, voice steady. "I need to initiate a repossession." "Yes, I'm the title holder." The manager asked for documents. I sent everything within minutes. "Do you want to notify the driver first?" he asked. "No. Just that one word. Come. Final." While I waited, I opened another email draft. Step 2, the boutique loan. Thread and Willow, her beloved, carefully curated self-made dream, was partially constructed on a loan she couldn't secure alone. She begged me to co-sign years earlier, terrified that her dream would collapse before it started. I did it because she was my sister, because I believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. But that belief had been twisted into something ugly, rewritten into a fairy tale where I didn't exist. My email to the bank was short and direct. I will no longer be contributing to payments on this loan. All future correspondence should be addressed to the primary borrower. I hit send. There was no dramatic soundtrack, no rush of adrenaline, just a deep, solid exhale. Within 30 minutes, my phone buzzed. The dealership, vehicle recovered. Just like that, another piece of Madison's carefully curated image dissolved. Not long after, I heard a knock at my hotel door. Elena walked in, her expression a mix of concern and relief. "Kim's people are talking. The SUV was taken from her driveway this morning." I nodded once. "She's freaking out online," Elena continued, posting those vague betrayal stories and deleting comments. "And the bank called her, apparently." I sipped my coffee, surprisingly at peace. It was bound to happen. Elena sat beside me. "Are you okay? Really?" I considered the question, not out of uncertainty, but out of unfamiliarity. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I'm done being the net that catches everyone when they fall. If she built her entire identity on pretending she didn't need me, then she can finally live in that truth." By afternoon, Franklin was buzzing. Small towns spread information faster than wildfire. Screenshots flooded group chats. People wondering why Madison wasn't driving her SUV. Speculation about her shop's finances. Questions about how self-made she really was. The praise she'd reveled in only a day earlier was turning into suspicion. Then a message came from a cousin. "You might want to know. Madison's at her shop crying. Scott's yelling. People can hear them from outside." I didn't hurry. I didn't revel in it. But I needed closure. Thread and Willow looked smaller than I remembered. More fragile. Like a dream held together by glue that had finally worn thin. Inside, Madison and her boyfriend were in a heated argument. When they saw me, their fight froze mid-sentence. Madison's face twisted, not with guilt, but with panic. "You did this," she snapped. "You ruined my life." I met her gaze with a calm she couldn't shake. "I didn't ruin anything," I said. "I just stopped fixing what you kept breaking." But what I would say next, and what she would finally confess, would close the chapter between us in a way neither of us could ever undo. Madison's accusation hung in the air between us, trembling with rage and desperation. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks in dark rivers, and behind her, the boutique looked like the aftermath of a collapsed illusion, arranged displays slightly off-kilter, receipts scattered on the counter, half-open boxes exposing what she tried so hard to polish into perfection. "You ruined my life," she repeated, pointing at me like a child blaming someone else for breaking a toy. I didn't flinch. "Madison," I said quietly, "I didn't ruin anything. I simply stopped carrying what you kept adding to my shoulders. Her boyfriend, Scott, stood back with folded arms, his expression shifting from anger to dawning confusion. Why didn't you tell me about the loan? He asked her. Or the car. Or any of it. Madison choked on a breath. I didn't think she'd ever take it back. I thought... She stopped, squeezing her eyes shut. You thought I'd always keep cleaning up after you? I asked. Her silence was answer enough. Scott looked at her like he was finally seeing her for who she truly was. You lied to everyone, he said quietly. To me, to the town, to yourself. Madison's face crumpled. She slid down to the floor, burying her face in her hands. Why couldn't you just keep helping? Her voice cracked. Why did you have to take everything away at once? I knelt, not to comfort her, but to speak without distance between us. You told me you didn't need me, I said softly. All of you said it, over and over. So I finally listened. She looked up, eyes red, lips trembling. I didn't mean it. But you said it, I replied. And you meant the part where you pretended none of this came from me. You pushed me out long before I walked away. Scott said nothing. His silence spoke louder than blame. I stood, dusting off my coat, feeling the final strands of obligation untangle themselves from my chest. Actions have consequences, Madison. You carved me out of your story, and I'm just giving you the life you insisted you built alone. She didn't run after me. She didn't apologize. She just cried into her hands as I walked out the door. The cold Tennessee air hit me again, but this time it felt refreshing. Not sharp, not painful, just clean. The sun hovered low above the rooftops, turning the quiet street into a wash of gold. For a moment, I stood there and breathed. Really breathed. This place, the town that shaped me, suffocated me, relied on me, rejected me, no longer felt like mine to carry. I drove back to my hotel without looking in the rearview mirror. By the time my plane touched down in San Francisco the next day, I felt an unfamiliar lightness in my chest. My apartment greeted me like a sanctuary, quiet, warm, untouched by expectation. I made tea, opened the windows, and let the breeze wash away the last traces of Franklin's heaviness. I realized something then. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're doors, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is close one. The guilt I'd worn like a second skin began to peel away. I poured my energy back into work, into friendships that chose me willingly, into a life that didn't require me to shrink so others could feel bigger. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need them to see what they'd lost. What I found was far more powerful. Peace, distance, and the understanding that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. And if anyone out there has ever held together a family while being erased by the same people they tried to protect, I hope this story reaches you where you need it most. Your worth isn't determined by who refuses to acknowledge it. Sometimes walking away is the only way to finally come home to yourself. If you want the full script formatted for video narration, titles, or chapter cards, just tell me. I can package everything cleanly.